in theory, you are joining our Google Classroom. This information is also in the Q&A, the join code. And then as you're joining, if you could just kind of let me know who you are, where you work, what you do, I would appreciate it. This is my reminder to myself to record, which we're already doing. So this is who we are as a team. I am a very tiny portion of Team ILE, Innovation and Learner Engagement, and part of their digital learning team. So I am fortunate enough to be actually extended day with ILE. So you'll notice on the screen, I'm only 20%, doing a lot of the kind of Google and tech tool trainings virtually like this. Here are the rest of my full-time colleagues. So Jennifer is our digital learning specialist, AKA the boss. And then there's Christina, Glay, Tina, and Lisa. Extensions are up there if you guys ever have any questions. You're welcome to reach out to me. And if I don't know the answer, I can pass it on to one of them. But this is kind of who we are. And really the idea is just to facilitate the use of digital tools. In the grand scheme, it's to promote learning in classrooms, but I know this series, this kind of professional practice one, is not really just for teachers. It's kind of in your daily life as an employee. And the things that we're going to focus on for the day are just kind of that tool comfortability. So for today, it's all about Calendar and Gmail, and we're really just looking at kind of how to streamline your day-to-day work. And then if you're looking at ISTE standards, these are typically focused on teachers, students, and then administrators. However, I feel like we're really heavily leaning into learner today. So we're always trying to better ourselves in our practice, ultimately to affect student learning, no matter what position we are in the district, right? We're here for the kids. So this is kind of where we're focusing for the day. And then hopefully you've seen this before. This is our big 4 and our big 3 in the district. So in the center, you've got the students and what's kind of happening in the classroom. This is kind of on the teacher side of things. So teaching our standards, making sure we're asking high level thinking, et cetera. And then for today, we're really going to focus on this outer circle right here, kind of in preparing our learning environment and just getting ourselves ready so that we can be there for kids. Okay. For objectives, if you walk away today discovering a new tool or a new piece of a tool, Calendar and Gmail are pretty, standard, I would be thrilled. And then if you could use one thing to kind of streamline your work, I feel like job done. So if you walk away with one kind of new, oh, I didn't know that, and this is like really going to change my game, I'll be a very happy lady. So we're going to start with Calendar. If you access our Google Classroom, you'll see there's a section for Google Tools like this. And in Google Tools, you'll see 913 Calendar and Gmail. In here, there is a checklist. If you're interested and you're at work, you can print it. I'm old-fashioned sometimes, and I want to be able to physically check off where are we, what are we doing. And then you also have access to the slides here. So we're going to start in Calendar, and then we'll just kind of go through. My style is very much do things live so that you can see, like, what does it actually look like when I click? But you do have screenshots and click here, as you're going back through the slides or watching the recordings, things like that. But like I said, please, 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 please unmute. Let me know if you have any questions. I am here to help. Okay. So when we're talking calendar, here's kind of what we're going to do. We're going to look at some settings first, how you can change things to kind of personalize and fit your needs. And then in terms of actually creating events, creating appointments, making new calendars, things like that. So when you are in Calendar, and I invite you, if you are kind of a play as you go person, to open a new tab, open up Calendar, everything you are going to find in this settings section is going to be in this cogwheel under settings. And if you have any requests for add-ons, you can click here and it'll take you out to a work order form. So you can actually kind of update and personalize as you go if there's anything you would like to add on. But everything we're going to do today is in this little settings cogwheel. And then I'm actually going to get out of this and just go through with you guys some of the settings, things that you may or may not be aware of. but we'll come back to the slides in just a moment or two. So when I go to Calendar, I personally access it by just typing calendar.google.com. I've accessed this so many times, Google just knows, oh, if you type in CAL, this is where you're going. You can also go through Clever. You can go, if you're in Mail, you can click on the calendar icon. There's lots of ways to get here, but this is what yours probably looks like. You're in right now, Google Calendar and Gmail for professional practice. And then that settings wheel is here. So if we go into settings, you'll find a ton of options. So towards the top, we're looking at kind of just basic language and region. This should all be pre-done for you. But if you notice you need to make any changes, this is where you would do that. So time zones and whatnot. World clock, if you're interested, that's not something I would like to have. And then here is kind of your default when you're creating events. So typically, if you create events that are not 60 minutes, you're welcome to change that here. That way you don't have to change it every single time you go set up an event. Speedy meetings would be if you want stuff to end 5 minutes early so that you have time to get to your next meeting. So instead of auto doing an event from like 2 to 3 p.m., it would do from 2 to 2:55 so that you have walking room or bathroom break or whatever you need. When we're looking at notifications, so I don't know about you guys, but I, especially during my teaching day, I need stuff to pop up and ding and be like, hey, Jesse, there's a thing happening. Don't forget. That would be these desktop notifications. So off, it won't do anything. It'll just be on your calendar. It does not remind you. Desktop notifications, it will actually push a little black box over here on my screen. So every morning in second period, we have our daily announcements via Google Meet. And on my calendar, it'll ding about 5 minutes before second period. Ding. Don't forget, join the Google Meet. I love it. Huge, huge, huge. And then if you snooze it, how often would you like it to come back and bother you? Okay. You've got some view options here. So you can have it show weekends if you want. It's not something I have shown recently because my weekends are on my paper calendar at home or on my personal. But if you have games or extra duties or home visits or things like that, you can always have it show weekends. If you have show declined events, it will actually show you things that you have said no to. So let me see if I can actually go find something I said no to. That's a maybe. That's a maybe. Oh, right here. Okay, so notice how this one is there, but it's actually struck out. So in case you're like, oh, dang, I said no, but I can actually go to this, I prefer mine to show up so that I can see exactly what I've said no to. Again, personal preference, you don't have to have that, but that's what it would look like. So if you show declined events, that's just looking at things you've said no to in the past. Week numbers, so like January 1st, that would be week 1, and then December 20-something to 31st, 25th to 31st would be week number 52. If you would like that to show, you can. Shorter events, the same size as 30 minutes. That's just referring to how much size does it take up on your calendar. So like here's our announcements. They're teeny, 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 tiny. They do not show up as a whole 30-minute chunk. That's asking like if it's something that's super short, would you like it to show up as a 30-minute meeting? And really all of this stuff is personal preference. There's nothing that like you have to do this. It's just what you prefer. Reduce brightness of past events, have them kind of gray out, so to speak. And then if you are responsible for more than one calendar, so maybe you're trying to look at your teammate and plan, when do we have time to get together and talk about X? In this side-by-side day view, you can actually have two people pulled up. I don't have any shared calendars anymore, but I used to do this a lot when I was in the office. I would pull up myself and my co-presenter, and we would look at, okay, when do we have free time together to go over some meeting? So if you're interested, that's that. If you're in day view looking just at today, you can actually see all the calendars side by side by side. When do you want your week to start? Is there some custom view that you want? Maybe you don't work on Fridays or you don't work on Mondays and you want to shorten it and just show your actual work week. Events from Gmail. So if, when we get to Gmail, we can talk about this a little bit too, but Gmail is getting very, very smart where you can actually have it auto create calendar events based on what's in an email. So would you like it to do that? Yes or no? Who's able to see those things? And then working hours. So as a teacher, I work 8 to 4. I used to work 7:30 to 3:30. So I actually went in pretty recently and changed this. And what it does is it actually allows anyone that can see your calendar to see, are you at work or not? Kind of what are your standard hours? And then when we look at the appointment schedules, they should mirror this time as well. And then you can tell them if you're in the office, if you're working from home that day. I had another office because yesterday I was working, but I wasn't at my school. I was at King for a meeting. So I set up an alternate office. So maybe if you're supporting 2 or more sites, you can kind of mark on this day I'm here, on this day I'm at the other site. You can kind of have that set up here, just as a default. Do you want keyboard shortcuts? I don't use them all the time, but I have it turned on. Offline, I don't have. And then appointment schedules. Would you like to be able to create appointment schedules instead of appointment slots? Really, it's just the new thing that's coming. So I believe that one is usually clicked on anyways. So now we're going to look at a specific calendar. So all the stuff that we just looked at is kind of Google Calendar in general. When you're looking at a specific calendar, that's more looking at like, actually, let me go back for a second. So over here on the left-hand side, I've got all my calendars. This is my calendar as Jessie the human. This is one of my Google Classroom, because I kind of run them all the same. This is one of my other ones. There's another work one, a task one, social emotional learning, all these different calendars. When we're looking at these settings for those specific calendars, that's what we're talking about. What are the settings for my Jessie calendar or my classroom calendar or my whatever calendar? So to do that, I'm actually going to click into my Jessie calendar. And what it shows me is what's the name of my calendar. So you can change the name if you don't like what it's called or you wanted to update it. Do you need a description for your calendar? So if this is public facing, maybe you would include a little blurb about what it is. Since this is mine, for me, I don't need that. Who owns it? What organization are they in? Now, accessing permissions. If you have just been watching, this is actually something I would invite and recommend that you turn on. Again, it's personal preference, but I think this one is awesome. So I do not have make available to public because I don't need the whole world to see when I'm in trainings and when I have daily announcements and meetings and things like that. What's really nice though, is if you make it available for RUSD, you can adjust what they're able to see. So in theory, if you were to go to calendar and search me, Jay Gerbata, you would be able to see blocks of time when I was busy. What that allows people to do is if you're trying to set up meetings, you can't see what they're doing, but you can see, oh, Jessie's free today at 1 o'clock, which I mean, I'm in class at 1 o'clock. But in theory, you know, this is when she's free, this is when she's busy. That's all they could see. So that one is kind of interesting if you wanted to share out a little bit of information. So back in my Jessie calendar, again, only if you're interested, but what it allows you to do is if you're trying to set up a meeting with someone, you don't have to bug them and be like, hey, when are you free? You can kind of see when they're free, when they're busy. And it's not a perfect solution, but it's something. And then if you want your calendar info to show up in other places, like in Gmail, things like that, you can allow that here. Down here is if you're going to share with specific people. So if you are, like in my previous role, I shared my calendar with all my teammates so they could see when was I out at a training, when was I in a meeting, etc. I shared with my bosses, I shared with our secretaries, and I gave them varying levels of viewing and editing access. So I'm going to show you guys what this would look like. If you go to add people or groups, so I'm going to add my new boss, Jennifer. And then what it's going to allow me to do is, what do I want her to be able to see? Really, there's not much on here to see. I've already added her to all my events. But what I could do is I could let her see if I'm free or busy, which as a boss to an employee, that's not that helpful. See all details. So she could see pretty much exactly what I see on my calendar. Do I want her to be able to make changes to events? Or do I want her to be able to make changes and manage sharing? So this one is what I used to do for secretaries and my boss. You have access, you can change whatever you need. If you see something that's wrong, change it. Make changes to events, I didn't really give to anybody, but I did let a lot of people see all my event details because it's my work calendar. I don't have anything like shady to hide. So if you are interested in sharing with a teammate or secretary or, anyone like that, this is how you would do that. And what that would allow you to do is it would allow you to actually see their information over here, and you could click and you could have it show their stuff. So this happens to be our ILE training calendar, but it would work very similarly where you could actually see what they're doing when they're doing it. And then you can always get rid of it if you don't want to look at it all the time. Okay. So if I go back into my Jessie calendar, that was sharing with specific people or groups of people. Event notifications. This is purely your preference. I prefer having 2 reminders. One reminder 30 minutes ahead of time, just in case there's drive time or I'm in the wrong classroom or I need to get something prepared. 30 minutes before an event, my desktop notification shows up. And then 5 minutes beforehand, another one dings through and it's like, hey, Jessie, don't forget, this thing is happening. You can add as many as you want, and you can actually add them days, hours, weeks in advance, whatever you prefer. So I'm actually going to get rid of that one because I don't want that there. But this is awesome for like, hey, I want to be reminded of my events a day in advance. That way I know, for example, what to wear. Am I doing a training or am I doing a lab that day? Okay, jeans and t-shirt for lab day, whatever cardigan jacket thing for training day. If it's an all-day event, like, so yesterday I was at a training, I had an all-day event like training at King. I personally like to be reminded of those the day before at about 11:30. Just remind me that tomorrow I'm doing something totally different. And again, you can add as many as you want. And then you can also choose, is it going to be a notification or is it going to send you an email? I prefer notification just because it's a little more in my face. It dings, it pops up on my screen. It's like, hey, don't forget the thing. But if you prefer to have emails, you could do that as well. And this is specific to events on this Jessie calendar. So if you wanted something different for, I don't know, your Google Classroom or your team calendar or your whatever, you could always set that up individually per calendar. Some other things. How do you want to get notifications? So things like there's a new event, an event was changed, an event was canceled. Do you want an email or do you want nothing? Do you want to just find out, when you go search? I prefer to have stuff emailed to me. Although daily agenda, I do not get. That would be more like I'm a principal or I'm a director and I have meetings back to back to back to back and I kind of need a summary of my day. Then daily agenda would be helpful. But if I'm being real, my day is very much the same. First period always starts at this time. I have meetings on Wednesdays. It's kind of routine, I guess. But if your days are kind of wild, you might want to turn on daily agenda. And that will just give you an email like, hey, here's what's going on for the day. Integrating calendar, we don't do very much with. This is like if you wanted to add your calendar to a website, you could use this. Or if you wanted to embed it, you could use this. That's not something we do on like a day-to-day basis. And then if you wanted to get rid of your calendar, you could delete it down here. So again, that's just for this one Jessie calendar. That does not look at Google Calendar in general. That's just Jessie. So I will keep going then. So that was kind of behind the scenes settings stuff. So if you're on our checklist, that was the first little box right here, our first little chunk, I mean. So then calendar in terms of creating things. So the actual day-to-day using calendar. Okay, so this is today. If I want to create an event, I can click on create. I can choose an event. So this is a thing that's happening. Do I want focus time? So it's going to tell everyone I'm busy. There's a little headphone icon. It's like, don't bother me. Chat notifications usually don't come through. Everything kind of gets muted in the Google world. Out of office, just to let someone know, like, hey, I'm not here today. Do you want to change your working location for the day? Are you just setting a task for yourself? Or do you want to set up an appointment schedule? So what those look like, if you're going to create an event, this is probably what we'll use most of the time. So we're going to have a pretend meeting. It's going to be Wednesday the 13th from 4:30 to 5:30. That's fine. Now, if you're trying to find a time with someone else, let's see if this works. An on-the-fly kind of demo. So if I'm trying to find a time with Jennifer, no, it's not shown. Okay, let me see. Maybe Tina has it. Oh, okay. So this is perfect. Notice how I can't see what Tina's doing, but I can see that she's busy from 7:40 to 3:15. This might not be a good time to set that meeting if she's busy this whole day. And then if you notice, see how it has all the gray bars up here, the diagonal bars? That's when she is not at work. So she starts work, it looks like at 7:30. I start at 8. She ends at 3:30. I go till 4. So notice down here, one, she's busy from 4 to 5, but it's past her working time anyways. That might not be a good time to set it up. So if you ever see that find a time, that's what it's referring to. Okay, so let's go back to our event. We're setting a pretend meeting. Whoops, if I could type. It's Wednesday from 4:30 to 5:30. That's fine. If I'm inviting people, this is where I'm going to invite them. If I want it to be a Google Meet, this is where I'm going to click and it will auto-generate a Google Meet. Do I want to tell people where it's at? It's either in this room or this location. Do I want to add a description, or maybe I need to attach some documents? Hey, we're going to be looking at the agenda for such and such meeting. I can go here and I can actually add it from Drive. Or what's really cool, I don't know if you see this, create meeting notes. What this does is it will actually start a blank notes document, and I'll show you in a moment, that will have all the attendees from the meeting. It'll have, I think, items discussed and then actions needed. And it's kind of this pre-done. And notice it's going to be created when I save the event. It's going to be shared with everybody, including those outside your organization. So if you need to just a quick brainstorm document, this is a really good way to go. And then this is where I would choose, what calendar is this? Is this a Jessie thing? Is this a bio thing? Is this an ILE thing? Who needs to see this? Okay. Do I want to change it colors? Do I need it to like really stand out? Hey, this is super important. Don't forget. And then if I want to change my notifications for this one event, I could do that here. Okay. And then when I'm done, this will open all the way if you wanted to see more options. When I'm done, go ahead and click Save. So my pretend meeting, if I go back to that note sheet, I had to do nothing except click that one button. So it tells me what day it was, what we were talking about, who was here, what did we talk about, what things need done. And this is fully editable. You can customize all of this, but that's kind of a nice feature. It just pops in right there. You don't have to go in and add it and then share it and do all the things. The other one I wanted to really highlight is appointment schedule. And there's screenshots for the other ones in the slides. But if you're looking for an appointment schedule, let's say you want to meet with students. So we have office hours every Wednesday. We do a 1 hour chunk of time. Maybe you're requiring students to make an appointment schedule with you and come up and talk, and they talk about their grade for 5 minutes or something. Or you're trying to schedule parent conferences or whatever it may be. This is a really, really good way to do that. So appointment schedule, we'll just call it sample appointment schedule. How long do I want each meeting? So 15 minutes. These are going to be really short and sweet. General availability. Okay, so when do I want this to show up? Is this an every week thing, or is this just a one-time thing? And I'm going to set just this one day. This is when it goes on. If I need to, I can add another day. So maybe this happens twice. I don't know, the 14th and the 15th. So it's very customizable. If this is all the time on Wednesdays or just once in a while. Scheduling window, this is really nice. So how far in advance can they make an appointment? And how close to the appointment time can they still book an appointment with you? So default is 4 hours, meaning if you wanted to set an appointment at 4:30 today, the deadline to set that appointment was 12:30. At 12:30, it will not show anything within those 4 hours. That way you have kind of time to prep and go, okay, there's a meeting in 4 hours. I need to get ready for that. But those are customizable. However you want to set that up, you can. Okay. Do you want buffer time? Do you want a maximum number of meetings per day? And then what calendars do you want it to check for availability? So maybe you're living in 2 different worlds, or you're at 2 different sites, something like that. It can cross-reference more than one calendar to see when am I actually free to do this. And then what color do I want those appointment schedules to show up? So the only thing I did not mention here, so let's say you're free 9 to 10 a.m. and then you take a break because you're driving to a school or whatever, and then you're free again from 11 to 12, you can actually break it up like that as well. So no one can book anything between 9 and 10 on the 14th. I'm sorry, between 10 and 11, because that is not an option for them. So you can add as many of these as you need to. What are those periods during the day? So you don't have to have just one big chunk of time. You can have small ones as well. Okay, so then we would go next. Your booking page, photo and name. Typically, this is just your default Google stuff. What does it look like? Location and conferencing. If you know they're always going to be Google Meets, you can have it auto create a Google Meet. If it's in person, you can say, okay, make sure you come to Arlington High School, room R6, phone call, etc. So how are we going to meet? Do you want a description? So this might be things like, this is a 15-minute chunk of time to discuss your grade. Booking form, right? What's it going to ask? And then reminders, and then save. So what you can do is you can then open that booking page from here, and you can see kind of what does it look like. So they can just click on a time slot. And then you also have the option to share that page as well. Okay, let me see. We talked about that. We talked about that. Talked about that. Okay, last thing. So if you are wanting to create a new calendar, so you would go next to other calendars down here. You would click the plus sign, create new calendar, and maybe this is probably not on my work account, but let's say I want to create a Gabata family calendar, create. Okay. And now it's right here in purple. And I can go back through all of those same settings and I can adjust kind of what that calendar looks like, who has access, etc. But you can make as many of these as you want. And if you're like, yeah, no, I think I'm done, I don't want to see that, you can just click the X or hide from list. And if you wanted to update the settings, you could come here. And then again, if you're like, yeah, actually, I don't need that calendar anymore, you can delete. The very, very last thing with your calendar is if you're up here on the right-hand top corner, you can choose how do you want to see your calendar. So just by a day, by a week at a time, by an entire month, by a year, which is your schedule. So kind of not calendar view, but it still tells you everything you've got to do. And then again, show declined events. And my 5 days is just the next 5 days. So it's not Monday through Friday. It's the next 5 days. These you can actually get to by using these little shortcuts. So I typically just press W to go to my week view or M to go to my month view. So I don't have to click anything. W for week, M for month. But you can kind of change how you see your calendar. Okay. We are going to take a quick break. I want you guys to just kind of play around for a minute. That was a lot of talking, a lot of here's what things do. Take a few minutes, and then Gmail, if we don't finish everything in Gmail, that's okay. I definitely will get through settings and kind of how to customize it a little bit. Chat, if we do not get to chat, you're welcome to ask me at any point in the future. So I don't know if we're going to take 5 whole minutes, but let's take 3 or 4. Play around, ask any questions, whatever you need at this point in time. All right, so my 3-minute timer went off. I didn't see any more questions pop up. I know it was kind of a lot, but I'm going to add a little more. So we're going to jump over now to Gmail. Again, lots of ways to get there. I typically just go mail.google.com, and then I pop into my inbox. Yours may or may not look like this, and that's okay. I've played with it a whole bunch. I've kind of customized to see what I like, what I don't like. And honestly, I change mine all the time. So if you're like, this is not working, please don't feel like you have to stick with it. So ideally, we're going to look at searching, managing, kind of organizing. That's where I want to spend the bulk of our time. Settings, we'll kind of look through a few things, and chat, my guess is we will not get here because I want to get you guys out at 4:45 like it was advertised on the flyer. Okay, so when we're in email, I try really hard to keep my inbox semi-orderly. Right now it's not doing that great, but we're frozen. Uh-oh. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm actually in a training for like 10 more minutes. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, so this is what my email should look like. I try to do a good job keeping everything kind of tidy, but if we go to everything, I have a bajillion emails that are just hidden and hot mess, and I don't ever see them. So this is kind of what I want to walk you guys through. Just like if you know something is here, but you can't find it, the search bar is your friend. So you can either type, so this is my principal's name, and then you can see everything associated with Ibarra. But notice, like, here's Kylie Ibarra. Well, that's not my principal. That's not what I want to do. So if you click on these little sliders, you get a whole bunch of search options. So who's it from? So I only want to know if it's from Stephen Ibarra. I might know it's talking about office hours, but I don't remember exactly what the subject was. If I know it doesn't have something, I can say, okay, it talks about office hours, but doesn't talk about whatever. Do I know what size it is? Do I know when it was sent to me? And then what do I want it to search? I would typically leave this as all mail just in case it accidentally got archived or it's in the trash or things like that. And then you can even tell it doesn't have an attachment. So I'm going to search anything from Stephen Ibarra that has to do with office hours. And then we're going to go anything in the last year. And let's just see what shows up. Okay, so everything is from Stephen Ibarra. Office hours, work hours, that's not the greatest. So kind of as we're looking, now, even if this was sent to me a year ago, oh, I remember that one time in November, he sent me this thing. It doesn't matter where it lives. You don't have to go hunt for it. The beauty of Google is the ability to search for things. And again, that was just in, let me go home. You can search like kind of basic up here, but if you click on this slider, that's when it brings up all of the details. In terms of kind of managing, so you'll notice over here on the left, there are labels. I've seen people do this a few different ways. So they've gone in and they've said, okay, this is about school site council. So I'm going to click on labels and I'm going to create a new label and I'm going to call this school site council. Create. And now there's a school site council email and this is tagged school site council. You can see that little gray box right there. So I've seen people do it this way. I've also seen people where it's a little more Outlook-ish. If you're, familiar with Outlook, they will actually click and drag it where it's no longer in their inbox. It just lives over here in school site council. I haven't done this very regularly, but I know it works for a lot of people. You make an actual kind of folder, even though Google doesn't have folders, and you house things in there. So it's up to you. I lately have gotten pretty not great at organizing my stuff. But one thing I love, and I'll show you in the settings, is I have everything unread up here. Then I have a section for starred email, so things that are important that I might want to go back to. And then down here is everything else. This is the hot mess. This is the junk drawer. It's just every email I've gotten that's not unread and it's not starred as important. So this is my kind of current organization system. And if you wanted to look into that, you would go over here to settings, just like in Calendar. It's that little cog wheel. And you've got some quick settings over here that you can look at. So what kind of look do you want? So default is really spread out, shows attachments, things like that. Comfortable is the way I have it. It's kind of spread out a little. And then compact is everything is really tight, so you get more messages per page. Do you want it to look pretty? You'll notice all my recent ones are nature, sunrises and plants and flowers and things like that. And then what kind of inbox do you want? So default is just whatever Google normally goes to, and it's that first screen that I showed when I got here, when I said it was frozen. Do you want to see things marked as important first? And that's something that Google does kind of on their own, and I can show you how to adjust that. Do you want unread first? Do you want starred first? Do you want priority? Do you want multiple things put together? And these are very customizable. Do you want a reading pane? So that's this right here, where you read your email. I prefer having my messages over here on the left, and then I actually read them right here on the right. But you can have no split, where it's just all your messages. You can have below the inbox, so you would see them up here like this, and your reading pane is down here. You can have no split, where you don't see any kind of preview. You just see the emails here. Again, I like this one. And then do you want your emails clumped into conversation view? Sometimes things get a little lost for people if they're all over the place. It kind of helps keep all your replies, everything kind of in one nice package. But again, it's all personal preference. What I'd recommend is just kind of play with stuff and see what works for you. If you're looking for a little more in detail though, you would click see all settings. And this is where you're going to get access to a ton of customizable pieces. So notice across the top, there's all these different, buckets for settings. So there's an entire section just for labels. What do you want to see? What do you not want to see? For inboxes, for accounts, if you want to filter or block certain addresses, you could do that here. Do you need to forward for whatever reason? Add-ons, we don't have tons. Oh, good question. Will we ever run out of Google Mail storage in RUSD? As far as I'm aware, no. But since I left ILE like full time, I've noticed if you're in Drive, my little Loom thing is in the way, but you see down here it says some terabyte of shared 1.11 whatever used. Same thing if I'm in my regular Drive, it tells me this much 299.27 terabytes, whatever this is, have been used up. That showed up recently. That number has increased. So I'm going to say no. We were told back in the day it is unlimited. Now, if I find out differently, and Katie, I'll ask, I will let you know. But as far as I've ever been told, we will not run out of space. Google Education is massive, unlimited storage, whatever you need. But if that changes, I will let you know. Good question. Okay, so forwarding add-ons, this probably is not going to be huge. Chat, if you like having chat, it's over here. It's what we really probably won't get to today. I used to use it all the time. Think of it as text messaging, but through Gmail. Here's a few settings here. Like, do you want it on or off? Do you want it to ring if you have phone calls? Do you actually want to see Meet in this main section or no? Advanced, again, probably really won't need too much. And then themes, if you wanted to set a theme for yourself. Where you'll find most pieces is in general. If I were you, I would look right now at your maximum page size. How many emails do you want to see on a page? I'm crazy. I have it at 100. I don't want to have to click, go to the next page, go to the next page, go to the next page. I want to see them as many as I can. But if you're like, no, I'd rather just have short, sweet pages, you can lessen that number. I want to say default is 50, if I'm not mistaken. And then undo send. So Google is brilliant, and they give you this many seconds to change your mind. I think default is 5. For my brain, that is not enough time to be like, oh, crud, I didn't want to send that. No, please don't send, please don't send. So I stretch mine out to 30 seconds. And anytime I send an email, I say send. And notice this little black box over here pops up. Message sent. Do I want to undo that? Go, oh, crud, I really didn't mean to send that. Or do I just want to look at it? So for whatever length of time you have that setting set to, is how long that black box shows up. Once that black box is gone, you cannot undo the send. It's sent, it's there. So if you do anything, I would set that to 30 seconds because it gives you the most time to like, oh crud, I didn't put the attachment or whatever. The other ones that I think are like big is if you look at default reply behavior, reply or reply all, you've probably all been part of that, like reply all, stop replying all, but they're still replying all to tell you to stop replying all. My default button is reply. I have to hunt for a reply all button. So in theory, I won't ever be part of that crazy loop of reply all. And then the last one is, I mean, there's lots of good ones, but I think the last like awesome one is this signature. So I have 2 different signatures. If I'm writing you an email, you see this big picture, it's the Arlington Lion, and it has my extension and my email and all this stuff. If I'm replying to you, it's a really short and teeny tiny version. And you can actually customize when those signatures go into play.